Go ahead. You're in charge.
What? Oh, hey. Sorry, I was off on another page. Welcome to Tonicmole's Longbox. Today, we got John Babu Boo Boo
Bua.
Bua on the show, and he's what's the name of your comic?
My name of that comic is Heroic Tales #1.
Heroic.
Going live the 26th.
And your superhero's the Patriarch. Is that correct?
Yes. For issue #1 is featuring the Patriarch.
Mm.
He's a husband, father, superhero, and that's he's trying to manage all of his time with 7 kids, a wife, a farm, homeschooling his children. He's doing it all, and then keeping the world safe for his family and children and everybody else too.
Will like each of your issues have a different focus, hero wise?
For the first couple of issues, issue #1 is going to feature the Patriarch, and then there's a backup story of the origin of the corrupt politician. There's always a corrupt politician villain in the comics.
Of course.
And he's famous for wearing the same suit, his lucky suit. So he goes by the name of the suit. So that's the backup. That's going to be drawn by Ron Mosicki and colored by Oscar Carrera. The main story is drawn by Renzo Rodriguez and then Daniel De La Silva. And then we're going to have some ads, mock ads. I don't want to scare people off with ads.
Right.
Comic book ads. I want to try to have a letters page, and I'm trying to get in the center of the book a map of Science City drawn. Renzo was a technical artist before he became a comic book artist, so he's real good at cityscapes and stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see that. And my campaign, I kind of have stars in my eyes. I wanted to make it complicated, everything like that. And I got talked down, but talked reason. So I'm just going to have a couple of collector's cards. Now, of course, if we do better than that, I'll add more stuff. But everybody's going to get a metal coin, and that's just a given. That was going to be a stretch goal, but I already paid for them, and they're on their way. And then the comic. The comic was gonna just be the Patriarch, but now I had the stretch goal of Ron, but I'm like, I don't want to wait. Let's get this done. I want to try to get this comic in people's hands as fast as possible, and I didn't want to wait for another 8 pages, inked, lettered, and all this stuff. So I said, let's just do it. And I'm keeping the comic $10. I think comic books should be affordable. A couple people told me I was crazy, but yes, I am crazy. But I'm also keeping the comic affordable. I wish I could do it cheaper, but reality and economics is what it is. And then with shipping, I feel I'm asking people, to pay a lot of money for a rookie me. But I mean, the art is wonderful.
Yeah.
But I just would feel guilty charging too much more. And I'm so confident. I know I'll make my money back because it's just great looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like with those price points, $10 to $15, I think in that range is like a creator shouldn't probably go different because, I think about the 80s comics when a mainstream comic was $1.50 or so. It was $3 for a indie or underground. They're always 2 to 2.5 times the cover. And when you have a mainstream DC and Marvel at $4 to $5, well, guess what? We're charging.
That's a good way to put it. That's because I do feel guilty charging $10. But economics is what economics is.
Yeah, people wanting it cheap. Well. That's just not how indie and underground comics work. We're not DC Marvel. We're not printing 200,000 of them or something.
But I will have a stretch goal. If we make it to $100,000, I'll print them. If you back #1, I'll give you issue #2 for free. How's that?
Hell yeah! I did stretch goals for the first few, and then like you were saying earlier, you was like, I back comics. I don't go and check the updates later. That's something to keep in mind. So it's I always wondered, who are stretch goals for? Like, who goes, I backed that comic. They can't back it again. They already backed it.
Well, the stretch goals are a part of, like, to me anyway, it's like a fun thing. Like, oh boy,
It
let's get this. And I know this is going to sound terrible, but I have a short box, a comic book short box just filled with all the stretch goal stuff, stickers, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Into the box of no return.
Right.
And
Well,
but it's fun to get it. There has been some real cool stuff. I'm looking around. I guess I filed away, like, I just got this comic Shrine. Like, they got like a lanyard in here. They got stickers, cards, so a bookmark. Who was it that Graham Nolan had this challenge coin? It wasn't a stretch goal. You had to pay for extra for it. Oh my God. I love coins. I got a place called Norse Foundry. They're going to make a coin. I'll show you in my campaign. I'm going to make a coin. And I forgot to put it in here. I was going to say, if you wanted extra coins, or $1 each, but this coin, it's simple. It says Heroic Tales on one side. It's got the Patriarch Laurel Wreath on the other. And that's just something, because I love coins. I have a silly coin collection. Believe it or not, in my bathroom, I have a shelf in my I have the coolest bathroom ever. When you're sitting on the pot, you could look at all coins and knickknacks and Star Trek figures and whatever. So I have all these coins there. And ideally, for every comic, I want to have the symbol of the superhero that the comic is about on one side of the coin.
Right. And the guy who it was Brian Polito. I ordered a Lady Death comic, and it came with. It wasn't complex stuff. Like, one of them was, it was just a cardboard like this big that had like the calendar or something on it, and Lady Death on the other. And then a little wooden coins. He did the wooden coins with Lady Death on them.
That is cool. Well, this is my stretch goals, and the card, the art is already done, for the card. So, and I figured, let's keep it game. Let's keep it exciting. So I'm not going to reveal, I'll reveal the cards as they show up. So there's going to be 6 collector's cards, because there's 6 main, non-civilian characters in the campaign. And I'll reveal the first one is, I think we lost Tonicmole, or did we lose me?
We're both here.
Who did we lose?
Nobody? Or is it just me?
Hello. This is going to be. Hello. Did you lose me?
No, I still see you.
Okay.
Okay.
We had an earthquake in New York. I think the Mole Man is attacking. So at any given point, there should be supervillains and superheroes flying out. So as I was saying, the first card is going to be obviously the Patriarch. The second card is going to be Boss Moxie, the gangster character, and then his 3 henchwomen. And the last card, I haven't revealed who the main villain of the comic is yet. It's got to be some surprise. So, and I think this is just a fun game.
Right. Yeah.
Am I being crazy thinking I'll make it that high? Well, yeah. Let's shoot the moon. You know what I mean?
I think that's totally reasonable. Like, I mean, you're bound. You have probably a bigger reach than me, possibly. So I would be surprised if you didn't outfund me, really. So
you're a pro. You've been doing. What issue are you on?
12.
Speaking of,
11. I'm funding. I'm funding 11.
Right. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know Tonicmole, I saw an ad for Tonicmole's comic in an alternate comic, and I said, this looks good. And I backed it, and I'm just charmed by your comic. And I just recently reread them all, because at first I thought it was just, hey, it's slacker guys with superpowers. Then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, there's a deeper story going on, and you've been dropping clues from issue 1.
Yeah.
And no spoilers, but I had to message Tonicmole, and he said, you're about 75% there. So
you're getting there.
But I love the comic. So anyway, if I outfund you, there's a cosmic injustice, because you're proven.
Yeah.
You're making excellent comics. You're an excellent artist. I've said this, that you're the best with dialogue.
Thank you, sir.
Your dialogue just makes me laugh, and being funny is tough, man.
Well, there's those, like every writer, there's tons of things that are really difficult for me, but are super easy to everybody else, to where my crutch is comedy. Like, because
you get it.
Yeah, it's just what comes naturally. Whereas everything else, I always wanted to do detective stories, but that type of complex storytelling, I just don't have. I have one lane of traffic in my brain. I, a detective writer, you got to have like 50 to make a good detective thing. So
Yeah, I have a detective character and a detective story. Like, there's going
yeah,
to be a Jim Gordon, Harvey Bullock mashup with
right,
a
right.
twist, but I'm scared to write it.
Yeah,
Outlines, but
right.
the dialogue and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I usually just plan out stuff, and then whether I'm writing or drawing, and I say it's a good idea. You're going to learn how to do it, and I go okay, and just move forward. Kind of
Let's
like
address the comments here. Dale A.
yeah,
Speaking of moles, John looks like he's rebuilding the city after the mole man attack and Fantastic Four. Yeah, I used a picture of me not too happy at work. I had hernia surgery and I took some time off, but I went back to work early because my partner needed to leave to do the same exact thing. And they threw me in a pit because it was a rainstorm. So all hands on deck. We got to get in this pit. We got to finish it before the next rainstorm. I was not too happy. And that's what that picture is. and here's my Substack. So if you sign up for this, you'll just get updates about my campaign. No spam, I promise. And Marcus, my moderator, my wonderful moderator. I'm sorry to hear about the death in your family, and I know you've been never apologize for doing family first. You got to do family first. Hail everybody. Hail Marcus. Hail Tonicmole. And then we're throwing you a link.
yeah,
And Mark has got my back. I think because I don't want to say I had a Twitter battle, but somebody was talking about the price of comics, of crowdfunded comics in Twitter. So I just took the opportunity to self-market. I've been lambasted for being too shy about promoting myself. So I just jumped in. I have a $10 comic book. I'm adamant about keeping prices affordable. Comic books should be affordable. And I think I hurt the poster's feelings. He came out with like, well, if you want to be affordable, why not $8? I'm like, dude, we're going to play this game. I said, if you want to make money, why don't you charge $30 for you? It was just,
yeah,
it's just a silly Twitter argument. Shipping costs is a necessary evil. Nothing. Yeah. Tonic and I were talking about this beforehand. I'm charging $10 for my comic. I think it's a bargain. I think it's, I think Brian Bow just had 12 comics for $40, and and that was the best
yeah,
deal in crowdfunding. I can't meet. Maybe by issue 12 I can match that, but right now, one crowdfunded comic by a master artist, Renzo Rodriguez, the color alone is outstanding. I like the story. You've all seen the character, so I don't feel guilty about it. But the shipping, there's nothing I can do about that.
yeah.
I wish I could. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, somebody else said, I have no issue paying. Thank you, comics writer. Yeah. And the stretch goals are a value for the reader because the comic is expensive. Yes. I brought this up the other day that people were, I'm saying I'm charging $25 a comic, and then somebody said, well, Cyberfrog was $25. But look what you got for Cyberfrog.
Mm-hmm.
I keep pointing. I got this toy right above my head. I got a big comic. I got a secondary comic. I got stickers. I got a lanyard. I got like a toy. And if you really, really math everything out, you pay like $5 an item. So
Yeah.
that was a great deal. So I can't match that. And maybe someday, and I would love to do all that stuff. Yes, there was an earthquake here in Massachusetts. I was at work today, and we all felt the earthquake. And we all looked around. We're all construction workers on a building being built, and we all thought the same thing. Oh my God, the crane fell. So it got real somber real fast, and we all ran. And when we found out it was an earthquake, we were actually relieved. We're like, oh, okay, because a crane falling means somebody is seriously hurt. So we have a strange reaction, like, oh God, it was just an earthquake. It was just an earthquake. Shadowpunk. We got some creep named Tonicmole in the chat, and I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm just too shy. I saw that. I think you get away with 50. Yeah, I probably could, but at one point, am I chasing away potential customers? You know what I mean? Like I'm a new guy. this may sound mercenary, and I don't mean it. Maybe by issue 3, I could raise the prices because people trust me and they saw that I delivered a camp. But I'm a first-time guy. I got to establish trust with people. I think pirate shipping. I don't know about that. If you would explain that, I don't know. But
oh yeah, it's just a service to where you buy your postage through pirate ship instead of the post office.
Okay.
And they give you a discount. You almost have to do it that way because you're going to have to be printing out like hundreds of the shipping labels at home. So
Yeah.
you just buy them on the website. Pirate Ship's who I use.
I had RJ from Critical Blast on, and he does fulfillment service, and he laid out everything. He told me basically how much to charge for all. He's a professional, and we made the a shaken hand agreement as much as you can do. That if I sell 100 copies, I'm going with him. If I sell 99 and less, I'll do it myself.
Yeah,
he thought that was fair. So, I'm just afraid of shipping things out, and I'm working all day. I'm going to come home and put the wrong sticker on the wrong thing and send it, and then I got to get it shipped back, and then you know what I mean. Where he's a professional, he'll have it out in a week.
Right.
Yeah. Oh wow! Look at this comment. I had about 150 back and spent around $1,000 on shipping. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. And speaking of help from Tonicmole, I got these cards printed. Here's the front, and here's the back with the QR code. Yeah, Tonicmole did that for me. He gave me the QR code. And I didn't test it or anything. It was just so fun. I was like, thank you. And I put it in. I got the cards made up. And then I got a notification. Your cards will be shipping soon. And I'm like, I never tested that QR code. What if it goes to like the website? What if he was just messing with me? Here I am going to give it to my boss. That would have been the best joke ever.
I know. I wish I was more nefarious because I was like, man, that'd have been legendary.
But I work with a bunch of construction workers. They don't understand crowdfunding. They don't know, what I'm talking about. So I was explaining to them, you go to Fund My Comic and you blah, blah, blah. And you could just see their eyes were getting distant. So I said, so I got these cards printed up. And then I was like, I can't give them these cards until the 26th because they're going to be scanning them and it's going to take them to my inactive link. So I got these cards, the 26th of the Friday after work. So that Monday, I'll be handing out cards to everybody. Between my family and my coworkers, I should hit my goal.
And that's like someone asked me like how many like local people, and I go like none. I don't ship any to the state I live in. No, I ship one. My friend lives down there around Oklahoma City, and I ship to him. I think that's the only one but now I sell my comic at the local comic book store. So most people that are real local just go there to buy them. But
yeah, Marcus says it's a long wait. Tell me about it. It was supposed to be the 19th. That was the original date. But Vaughn Coleman's Phenomenova launches. And then I found out something else launches on the, I don't want to compete with that comic, so I was just like, oh man, he already announced it first. So I put it off a week. It's you can't coordinate with everybody. So just whoever claims the date first, he made the first announcement. So there you go. I ordered the Cyberfrog everything for $150 up to Cyberfrog 313 books, the shipping through the, okay. Yeah. Again, Ethan charging $25 is a great deal. You get that chromium cover. I wouldn't even know how to do that. And then you get toys made. I got a keychain. I got stickers. I got cards. So again, everything was like $4 or $5 an item if you break it down like that. You got more than 5 items. So whatever. So you want to interview me, and I'm doing all the talking. So
yeah.
Let's hear the hard-hitting questions.
All
Number
right.
7 will shock you.
Yes, the most. Okay, so how long have you been, speaking of your comic, Heroic Tales, which is soon to fund on Go Fund My Comic, how long have you been thinking of the story idea for Heroic Tales?
Okay, that's for those of you who don't know, my my friends and I, we play a role-playing game called Villains and Vigilantes. We've been playing since it came out in 1982, and every week we role play superheroes, read comics, play this game, and then we all went to college or whatever. So somewhere around, I'm going to say 2000, we all found ourselves back in New York, graduated college, settling down, getting real jobs. And I said, let's play Villains and Vigilantes again. So we all thought it was great. We rolled up characters, and we've been role playing, almost every week for years. And then kids started happening in that route. So make a long story short, Heroic Tales is an outgrowing of my role playing game. So it's set in the world that I've created. So I'm picking and choosing some fun stories that we played. And matter of fact, there's a website called villainsvigilantesforum.com. That's my message board, if anybody remembers message. And you could almost read my stories beforehand because it's the adventures of my. So I didn't feel comfortable using their characters. They rolled up the characters, they made up the characters, they designed the. So I used my NPCs and I'm turning the stories, but with NPCs. And then I found out my friend Mike, who I'll be talking to later on tonight, he was a little upset that I didn't use his character. So I was like, and my friend Paul was like, you didn't use my character. He's the greatest superhero who ever existed. So they will be making appearances later on. So to answer your question, I've been thinking about this for 20 years. The stories, I refine them because, sometimes they didn't work when you role play. Things don't go exactly the way it is. If you have, do you ever role play? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, I know, like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, but a superhero game. So,
right.
And if you know me, like when I played Dungeons and Dragons in college, I would take out notebooks, and like if they were going to encounter the Dark Wizard, I had every item written down in his pocket. Like I found some of my notebooks for adventures. I was like, I can't believe I took all the time to do. I've got, I'm going to sound like Mitt Romney. I got folders and binders full of
women.
Yeah. So I joke around, but I probably made up more superheroes than Stan Lee and Jack Kirby combined. I got thick binders with statted out sheets. And that's what I want to do on the stretch goals. On the flip side, I want to stat out their role-playing stats on the stretch goal card. So, you could buy Village Vigilantes and beat up the Patriarch.
Right. And that'd kind of be cool. Like maybe further down the line, like a big poster, like Dungeons Dragons, where you have the poster and for the role-playing and stuff, and maybe character sheets, but they're Heroic Tales badged and stuff like that. So people can get the game.
I've been reaching out to Scott Bizarre, the owner of Fantasy Games Unlimited, that publishes Village of Vigilantes. I got what I thought was his phone number. My friend lives in the same town as him, but it's a private residence, so it's he's like, I don't feel comfortable knocking on this guy's. So if anybody knows Scott Bizarre Fantasy Game, I want to do this legit. I want to cross promote. I want to get his blessing. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I would really love to, because that would be a goal within a couple of issues come out, to take all my characters and make like a module for this game that I absolutely love. Have rental. And for those of you who don't know, you could go to Fantasy Games Unlimited, their website, and pick up a copy of Villains and Vigilantes. It's my favorite role-playing game. I use it for fantasy settings. I use it for like Gamma World settings, and I incorporate that all into my universe. There will be characters that cross over into like a fantasy world at one point in the future.
And I think, a lot of creators I've talked to, a lot of these stories and stuff they've done go back decades. And Savage Dragon, that was like from grade school he started doing that. And for me, it's the same thing. I think Wepawet I created in 4th or 5th grade. I think 4th grade. Yeah. And he was called Wolfman. And it was just a ripoff of Batman. But then over the decades, he evolved to be dramatically different, but still the head, the big ears is still the same thing. And and there was like I have all these old sketches, like drawings and stuff, where it's this incremental, but all my superheroes were mostly decades old. Like Kira and Nora was the early 2000s.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like 2003, 4, something like that. And then in 2009, I wrote and drew the first issue. But so yeah, tons of everything in it is something I did decades ago, and it allows your brain, like you with your game. Stories are complex, and the reason we like Batman isn't because of Detective Comics number 27 or whenever he first appearance. It's
Yeah, most of
because
us haven't read that.
right. It's because of decades of refinement have made Frank Miller's Year One, but
Right.
Frank Miller's Year One could never exist without 70 years prior of storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's how, I think that's what's most interesting about mainstream comics versus a lot of Indian stuff, is that it's this hyper refinement over decades. X-Men number 1 is kind of interesting, but they didn't really know what it would become. You're right. The
Right.
Chris Claremont era, they would never be able to imagine how this would evolve. And so as creators like ourselves that aren't corporations, we have to simulate that hyper evolution in different ways. And I think one great way is when taking the things that when we were kids and we just refine it our whole lives. And by the time like Kira and Nornall in my comic hit the page, I've thought about this
Oh, yeah.
for so long that it has some of that feel. And another interesting thing that I think that, like with Heroic Tales, where you have like art teams and stuff, that's another way to kind of to evolve, is that you write it, you create it, and then hand it off to artists that then kind of infuses their own thing, so it becomes um, bigger than you. And for me, I use cover artists, illustrator Monk. Um,
Phenomenal artist.
yeah, and I create and write these characters, but a lot of stuff he does on covers and just me and him gossiping all the time. Um, like him, like Alice, I created Alice for number 4, and he really liked Alice. Well, his Alice is way more complex and different than what I created, right? He picked up Alice and then said, "Oh, she smokes, she works at a record store, she's this kind of all this." And I was like, that makes so much more sense. Like my Alice was so shallow. And so having those people to collaborate with, um, a superhero universe is often too complex for one human to carry. And so you need time and you need collaborators who will step in and carry weight, so you don't get one hero that's fully evolved and then this type of stuff. But
Well, it's funny that you said that, because as we speak right now, and I'm so mad that I didn't do it. Maybe Marcus, if you could look it up on Kickstarter right now, there's a campaign called Thunder Zone Comics, which is 4 comics, and inside that package is a comic called Marshall Strong. Marshall Strong was created by my friend Mike, who's one of my players.
mm,
So, and he's taken his player character and telling a story, as the GM I created, and the bad guy stuff, all characters that I made up. And what he did was he took the other player characters, removed them, and put all of his player characters in. So it's all of his characters over 20 years doing in a refined version of our story. So
right.
Mike helped me make my world, because he was a player that reacted to things, and when I wanted them to go left, they turned right. So I had to come up with notes and change things, and then
Right.
and then my friend Paul, who just killed all my NPCs, so I was constantly making new ones.
Yeah.
He's like, his character was overpowered, to say the least. And then I had my friend Jan, who he was the detective, so he wanted to solve mysteries. So he forced me to come up with more dimension to my campaigns, because Paul liked to do all the fighting. They were like Superman and Batman. Paul liked to do all the fighting. His character was Magnum, who was basically the Hulk and Magneto mixed together. And then Jan had a character called Prometheus, who was Batman with regeneration and fire powers, and he would solve the crimes. to put it in context for anybody who plays role-playing games, Prometheus had 3 hit points at first level. Magnum had 360 hit points at first level. But everybody criticizes the game Villains Vigilantes because it's too swingy. And I always say, well, the Wasp was on the Avengers with Thor, and nobody complained. They were vastly different power levels, but as a game master, you have to be flexible enough. Like, Jan likes to solve riddles and mysteries, be the detective. Paul likes to just crush things. And when they got the team together, Paul was like, I got this, go find the isotope and save the day. It was a lot of fun. So, and then Mike likes to be the hero. So he would be the heroic. So they all serve different little niches, and they forced me to come out and flesh out this world. And it's like, Marcus is the greatest moderator. Look at this. He already found it.
Nice.
And at 10 o'clock, I'll be talking with my buddy Mike. He's got to wait to put the kids to sleep, and we'll be talking about his. So I think it's funny that my buddy Mike is going to have a comic book set in my universe come out before me.
That's right.
but I reserve the right to say that it's not set in my universe because I didn't read issue 2 yet. For all I know, he destroys the world. So
right.
So yeah,
just out of spite.
Yeah.
And I've worked with I did that crossover with Sailor Rogowski, and me and Brian Ball. We talked tons. And
Brian Ball just finished up Wolf and Batsy campaign. Great guy, a tremendous help. Tonicmole's been a tremendous help for my campaign, and Brian Ball's been a tremendous help. I gotta say, if you're spending your time on Twitter fighting and you're aggravated and you're like, I need less screen. I don't mean to be a jerk, but that's kind of on you. Twitter's been nothing but a pleasure. I enjoy my messages with people and interacting with people. I try to keep it positive.
Twitter is like a gun. Nobody forces you to pull the trigger. It can be a great tool, but use it properly. Okay, so we went over the history of
I give you a long-winded answer, but that's me.
Yeah, that's good. I find it interesting because creators, also there's the guys like me that just thought about it for a long time and then put pieces together from stories over our decades. But then like you, there are a lot of creators that whether it'll be role-playing, but often even video games, like them and their friends play an MMO or something, and they'll deviate, the way they play it is this unique story and stuff. And I know lots of guys who their comics kind of bloom down of them playing an online game, very similar to the idea of a role-playing or tabletop. But those are very kind of modern, I think, ways people are developing stories that, like you said, a writer or artist, biggest danger is the box they live in, right? So our brain will compute the same outcomes too often. But where you have this this game where other people interact, it makes your writing forced to branch out beyond just what your brain is thinking, so it becomes less predictable and all these types of things, I would assume. And so
I had another group, Paul and Jan and Mike, they're all my age. We all went to college together. Mike was born next door to me. And then I met another group that were, they were in their late 20s, early 30s. And we also played, on another weekend night. And oh my God, they thought so different, and they really forced me to do different, I'd plan an adventure and I would this is the most logical path. And geez, it was like a tree, this one would do this one would do that, this would do this. And it was funny. It became a game at the end of the night. They would ask what percentage did this go by? And I'm like, man, I planned the story and we did 15% of my plan and 85% you guys went, but they were super, they had to save the day, but I didn't expect this. I didn't expect that,
Right.
And they could fly, so they would go to different parts of the world. So I'm pulling out all the sheets.
Yeah, and see, I just find that very interesting. For like when I write, uh, I have a long story that is the fundamental idea, but if I come up with something better, that's what it's going to be. And so there is a lot more chaos behind the scenes than I put in there, but uh, because I had this character that appeared only briefly, but my wife was like, "What's his deal?" And I was like, "Okay, here's the problem. His deal isn't in it no more, and I got to figure out why. How do I make myself seem so freaking clever by briefly showing this guy what does he tie back into?" I have I've had so many threads in my story like that dangling because I ripped out something to because I had a better idea, but I had foreshadowed something else. So I got to figure out what that is foreshadowing now, right? So I got to come up with a new idea.
You turn
Now,
it into Chris Claremont with the dangling plot lines.
yeah, yeah. But I only have one left. I've had many. I only have one dangling thread left that nobody would remember. Because you had mentioned something where you go, "What about this character?" I go, "Oh God, is he mentioning the guy that we don't speak of no more?" No, you weren't. I was like,
Oh,
"Aha! If that would have been something he would have asked, what's the deal with that dude? He never appeared
now I'm
again."
curious. Now I gotta look through the
Yeah,
comic again and guess which one.
and right, and remember the question you asked me because it would have made me go, wait, is he talking about this dude or that dude? They're in the same sphere. So, anyways, and the spoiler is I have no freaking clue now because I changed my mind. But uh so okay, back to your comic. So you're gonna fund should we look at your tiers? I know they do
Oh, sure,
that
sure.
in
I'll bring it up.
professional.
Okay, so here I'll scroll back up if I'm making everybody sick. So first off, I have to say Nick Axe designed this page for me. Nick Axe is also the artist on Crom the Destroyer from RJ from the Fourth Age. Just to show you how necessary Nick Axe was to my campaign, I submitted it 2 months earlier and got rejected because I didn't know what I was doing. So there you go. So Nick Axe is instrumental. But the first and most basic tier, $10 plus shipping, you get my comic, and you'll also get the coin. No backers yet because it's not active yet. It's funny because I already had a couple of friends going, "I can't buy your comic. What's the deal?" And it's funny how I take for granted the concept of crowdfunding. Like I have to explain crowdfunding to a couple of my friends. Like, it's not active yet. And when you buy it, it's not going to ship that week. We're about 85% done, but it still has to be printed and it still has to be lettered. That's pretty much all I have to do. So now we got $25 for 3 copies. I hope people with comic book stores take advantage of this. How cool would that be to walk into a comic book store and see my comic on the shelf? $6 digital tier. The old man in me is going to say, "Get off my lawn. Comic books are supposed to be in your hand." Like Stan Lee said, comic books are like boobs. They're great to look at, but you want one in your hand. But a lot of people who were telling me they live overseas, and I have to respect that. And it became like an existential crisis. Do I want to make money or do I want readers? And the answer to both those questions is yes.
Right.
I can't. It costs money to do this, so I'm offering a digital tier. $6, you get a digital tier. That means you get the PDFs of the comic. Then for $20, you get the comic and a pint glass. Pint glasses are already made. I got them right here. I've been drinking out of them. They make beer taste even more delicious. I wanted something that nobody else. I haven't seen anybody else doing that. A pint glass.
Are you going to include digital copies with your physical tiers?
I guess why not, right?
Right, because and I find it's usually easier because sometimes Now, this isn't something you'll probably encounter, but it's always like, thinking ahead. Is I saw a guy, it was years ago. This guy was funded his campaign. He had the digital, but he was waiting for the physicals to come back. So he couldn't release his digital because it'd be unfair to the physical. And I was like, if you had just let everybody have a digital, whether they bought physical or not, you can ship them out all at once and then wait until the physicals come. Otherwise, yeah, you're being unfair. Da da da. So
that's a good point. You know what? I let me think about that. I've learned the hard way not to make a snap answer.
Right.
So let me think. But that is a really good point. Why not? For $20 you could get the pint glass in the comic, and then $10 for the variant cover. For those of you who don't know, if you're watching for the first time, I wanted to do a Blue Sky classic comic book. Think of like Marvel in the Bronze Age, like the late 70s, 80s. To me, that was my era of comics. So that's what this is. It's an homage to that. So I wanted to get variant artists that are known for that. So I got Pat Broderick. How cool is this cover? Pat Broderick, for those of you who don't know, he did Firestorm. He did the original Captain Marvel. He did Captain Atom, Lords of the Ultra Realm, and most recently he did Mike Baron's Bronze Star. So, and then for $25 you can get 3 variant covers, variant cover in the pint glass, and then for $20 you could get both covers. For $25 both covers in a pint glass. And then here is, I also wanted to show this. This is the interior artwork. Renzo Rodriguez does this cover, and then Pat Broderick does this. Pat Broderick does not do the interiors. I want to make that clear. And then this is the back cover. I wanted to put something on the back. I only get one chance to make a first comic book, and no offense to the printers, but the printers put their advertisements on the back cover, so they're going to charge me a little more to not put that advertisement. But you know what? I don't care. And then when I saw this, I described it to Renzo. I sent him a tweet. I was on the train commuting, and I was like kind of sleeping, and I sent him a description, and he said, "I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll draw this." Oh my God, this is in a healthy comic book industry, this would be like Marvel and DC would be making posters of this. This is just the ultimate. I just love that so much. But anyway, I wanted to put this. This is the internal art. This is what you're getting. I'm not doing the old switcheroo. I'm not giving an inferior artist. This is Renzo, colored by Daniel De Silva. Look at this. This is outstanding. It just doesn't have the I didn't put the word balloons in it yet because when Renzo is done with all the pages, I have to redo the script because there's like this page only had he added another panel, so I got to add change the word balloons around. And then I just love this. So the artwork is consistent. It's just wonderful. And I guess I could spoil this, but over here, can you see? I don't know if you can see my cursor. This is a little Batsy, and this is a little wolf figure. A little. Oh, I'm not even showing.
Oh yeah. I see it.
Yeah, the wolf and Batsy action figures. I wanted to give it homage to Brian, who's really helpful with advice at the writing stage, and then everything else you've seen. So I'm excited. I had family members today asking, how come I can't buy your comic yet? I'm like, because the campaign's not active. Have you encountered that? Like people, like, I guess we're in a bubble where we understand crowdfunding and what it means and what it entails. But when I explain it to guys at work, they never heard of Kickstarter. They never heard of Indiegogo. They obviously never heard of Fund My Comic. And then when I tell, they're like, so I'm buying it, but I'm not getting it yet. I'm like, theoretically, you're buying it so I could make it.
Right.
What happens if you don't make it? I'm like, well, it's 85% done already. So it's going to happen. That's what they say on crowdfunding. So well, I know where you live. I know where you work.
That's right. I'll track you down and get my $10.
Yeah. What does Marcus say? I heard you owe Nick a lifetime supply of Tim Hortons coffee. Yeah. Nick is. It's funny because he's like he at the bottom here I put all the credits. I'll scroll down to the bottom. So there's me, there's Renzo, Daniel De Silva Rodriguez, the colorist. Bill Williams is our letterer. Bill Williams has a wonderful comic called Punchline right now that crossed over into your comic.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, great comic, great letterer. And Ron is doing the backup art. I didn't show any backup art. I should show the first page. And Oscar Carreno's doing the backup coloring. But there's no credit for Nick. He wouldn't take credit. And then he said, well, what credit would you give me? And I said, you're the turd polisher. Because he took my campaign that got rejected and actually turned it to I think a beautiful page.
Yeah, it's excellent. And I like, there's a lot of, I was struggling with this with we're doing On Call Heroes, a spinoff of Saving the World. And I kind of had envisioned like Saturday morning cartoons that I grew up on. And I was doing some graphic design. And it was very 80s cartoon, right? And I was like, nah, I think I hate nostalgia, right? I don't like pandering. It's that nostalgia inspired me, but I didn't want it to be too overly, right? It's like finding that balance. And, like with this comic, with your comic, there is, the inspiration of nostalgic things there, but not a pandery nostalgia.
No.
Like there is, it's a modern comic.
Yes,
but
it's set in 2024. I'm going to have the characters age in real time. As you can see on the cover, they have cell phones.
Right.
The only nostalgia is it's classic superheroes.
Right.
It's not going to be guys sitting around in a coffee shop contemplating the nature of their relationship. And there is a relationship. He's married. He has kids. That stuff will come in time. But it's to serve the story. This classic superheroes. There's fights. I'm starting out. One of the things I think that people do, and again, I'm a rookie writer myself, so consider this is I don't want to have the Thanos attack in the first issue, and then you got to top it, and then you constantly top. So it's starting out like the day in the life of a superhero. The challenges that he faces. It's not Dr. Doom and Darth Vader and all. That stuff will come. But this is you dipping your toes into my universe, and that was one of the things. I threw everything in the kitchen sink in the first issue in the first draft to show you how wonderful my world was. Right. And the feedback was, I don't care about any of this stuff. Let me know about the characters. And I rewrote it. I stripped it down. So I think I'm dripping my world building into this comic at a slow and steady race, so that you can't I don't even tell you the Patriarch's origin in the first issue because do you care about this? Because how many origin stories are there? He got his powers. So I'm just letting you know he's a superhero. He's doing this. This is kind of what he could do. He's playing a game of he's letting people think he's more powerful than he is, because that's his thing. Is he's dad. Right. Dad doesn't let you worry that Christmas might not happen because there's layoffs at the factory. Oh, don't worry, Tonic. You're gonna get that action figure that you want. And then you get it, and you're so happy, and you don't know that Dad worked a 16-hour shift to make that happen. So he wants everybody to know, I got this.
You're right.
But he's not as powerful as he portrays, which will bite him in the butt later on in a future issue. But there's a lot to tell, and you have to decide what makes it in the book, what makes it not in the book. So I cut a lot out because it was too much.
And see, I feel like that's
hey, Blue Boy, thank you for
one of those themes that hits hard for me, at least, because I had it. My dad was a cowboy gathering cattle and stuff, and we were with him doing it, and until I was mid-teens, 15 or 16, and then in my 20s back again. But there was once I grew up and become a father myself and stuff, then I found out how bad things were back in the day, and I had no idea. So And then, and then as a father, it's that similar thing. You realize that a a father has this immense weight to not show weakness, because their job is to make certain their family isn't having to think about all these things. That's the father's job, is to carry that weight.
Right.
And but when you see it from that father's point of view, that could be a very emotional story, especially two fathers who go, yeah, dude,
Well,
it's heavy. It's
that's
a
the big
heavy thing
thing.
to.
Is I'm not a father myself, but I have a wonderful father. I joke around saying that if I ever make it rich, I was going to sue my parents because they gave me a wonderful childhood, and now I can't relate to everybody else who's complaining and miserable in therapy. My therapy was a smack in the back of the head. Go outside and rake. You bored? Go outside and rake. So, but if you, it's been no secret that fathers have been getting crapped on in modern comics and modern TV shows and movies. Father's always the idiot, father's always stupid and they can't do anything. And I'm not saying like, oh, women can't do it. That's not the point. The point is I wanted to make a tribute to a father. So I was like, he's definitely going to be a dad. He's definitely going to be a good guy. He's a good guy. And he's also going to be a loyal husband.
Right.
I if you've been reading comics a long time, there's always been that trope of the women throwing themselves at the hero and the hero leaving. If you ever read The Spirit, like Ellen Dolan was throwing himself at the Spirit and he was always leaving. And if you read the original Captain Marvel, the women were always fawning over Captain Marvel, Shazam, and he would leave because he was a little kid. Right. So I wanted to play with that. So he's happily married. The women fawn over him, but he's happily married. He flirts a little bit. There's nothing wrong with a little bit, but he's happily married. I want. He goes home. He loves his family, but there's drama too. In a future issue, his oldest son is 19. Does he want to live on a secluded farm his whole life?
Right.
He's 19 years old. You've been 19 years old. You want to get out and do things. Like. So his father's like, there's supervillains and stuff like that. And I already wrote the scene in my head, not on paper, where the oldest son says, Dad, am I a prisoner here?
Right.
And the father he can't protect everybody constantly all the time. The boy, so I already have a whole story for that. And you asked earlier, and I think I glossed over, issue 1 features the patriarch. Issue 2 is going to feature Mary Sue, another character who moves to big city. And then issue 3 is going to feature the Raven, a Dark Knight Avenger. And then issue 4 is going to have the first patriarch Raven team up. And then and then I'm coming back to the page. And I'm also thinking, if I do well, I will have backup stories of other characters. You know what I mean? Like I like the idea of a full page, 22 page comic and then an 8-page backup. So the backups are flexible. I could do villains. I could do more stories. That's one of the great things about this is I get immediate response from people.
Right.
I love all of these characters. I got a million stories for all of them, and let's face it, you got to give the customers what they want, right?
Right. And and that helps guide, because you can become so overwhelmed with too many ideas. And that was like issue 10. I had the script for it, but everybody loved Octogirl.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had no intention of getting back to her till like issue 15 to 20 or something. I knew what the story was, but I knew I wouldn't be getting back to her. And
that was the issue that made me realize how good you were with dialogue.
It's my favorite like script I've written, because it's funny because I'm not a superhero writer. I'm a 90s underground writer. So a teenage girl who's a smoker and all this stuff, that's where I thrive. Well, I had written this character of Sam, and it was called I did this comic way back in the late 90s called The Depression, and it was just teenage angst, grunge type stuff. And I developed it over the years until I had basically Octogirl minus octopus tentacles and all this. And I had this whole story arc and everything. And I realized I would never get around to that, and I had no idea who I would sell that to in 2024. Right? It's sci-fi, superhero, horror. The type of comics I used to make just have zero zero audience. So
what was the name of it? Depression.
The Depression, yeah.
The Depression. I could see picking that up along with Joe Matt's Peep Show. And
exactly.
And all of those wonderful black and white comics. Just okay, yeah. I got my Batman. I got my Superman. I got my Avengers. I got my Joe Matt Peep Show, and I got the
right. And that was probably the era I drew that. I did one issue. I never printed it or nothing. I just drew it, and it's in a Tupperware somewhere. And so anyway, fast forward, and I was like, I am all in on saving the world for the foreseeable future. It's all that I'm going to be able to do. So if I ever want to do that story, I got to find out why she's in a superhero universe. And I was like, I'll give her tentacles and all this. I was like, it don't even affect the story all that much. And if you notice so everybody said, I love Octogirl. And I was like, and they were like, can't wait to see the follow-up. Right. And I was like, well, the ending was the ending. That was just where I left it, and I would pick up later. So then I was like, no, okay, I can spare like 8 pages or 6 pages or something.
Her follow-up was great.
And I consolidated a 20-some page story into 8 pages, which I think it's actually better than the original. And I consolidated it. And if you notice, the tentacles aren't even ever hardly referenced, because that story was written without her being having tentacles. So I consolidated the story and then I'll just have them appear at the end or something, and it's kind of mentioned at the beginning. But that original script was that one was the most. That script was fully fleshed out with no superhero anything, because it was the girl steals the one guy's gaming console,
right.
And
that's
other
what I found so charming about it, is how mundane it was.
Right. It was
even have Thanos attacking every issue to have drama in the comic. And this was something I was talking about earlier on Twitter, mm-hmm. and you commented. I said it's amateurish and childish, really, to say I'm going to make the most powerful superhero ever. He could beat up your guy. Yeah, great. I did that in 3rd grade, and it was fun.
Right.
My character, the Puncher or something like that, could beat up the Hulk.
Right.
I basically made up like One Punch Man back when, in 1981 or something like that. And it was ridiculous. And I knew it was a bad idea, but I got it out of my system. And now, and when I made up the Patriarch, I was talking to some and said, well, he's a Superman level character. There's going to be no threat. I'm like, but that's just it. He's not that powerful. Right. I'm actually going to put his actual stats on the back of the card, and you'll see how not powerful he is.
Right. And I think with writing characters like that, like Wepawet, he's technically omnipotent.
Right.
But much like Superman, right? Superman isn't about him beating the bad guy.
No.
Because that's not his mission. His mission is to save everybody.
Right.
So
he's an example. He's
right.
An inspiration. He is he's the father figure. The Patriarch is an homage to Superman. Yeah, so it is, but it's different.
And I think about one of the saddest freaking moments in film, in the Never-Ending Story, and that character goes, "With all my strength, I could not save my friends from the nothing," right?
Yeah.
It's that strength. Okay, let's say in the real world, you have the strongest man. He is 6'5". He is sheer muscle. What can he actually do? 2 things: jack and shit. He can lift heavy things, but our problems aren't, you just get a bulldozer. Well, the bulldozer's stronger than any human. Can it do it? No. How about a nuclear weapon? Well, it can't solve our problems either. And Superman, that's the crux of his whole story is that he has all the strength and he, in theory, lives forever, but his friends and family do not. And that was the most powerful moment in the original Superman movie, where this kid can jump and fly and run almost at the speed of light, but his father died of a heart attack. So what good was
Yeah.
any of it? And
Yeah.
a little bit of Highlander, who wants to live forever when love must die, right? And that's what I find the most interesting is, like for me as a father, I want to die first, right? I
A
would
lot of
rather.
people want you to die first.
I know it's a very. My whole family's like, yeah, that'd be preferable. No,
Yeah.
but you know, I would rather die early than live alone, right? Because yeah, back to the father thing, your sole purpose, or husband, it's the same thing. Um, your sole purpose is that other person. Who
Right.
cares? You, right? Yeah, that's the last thing that I give a crap about is myself. And so, yeah, the worst thing I can think of is losing the people around me, not my life. Superman and the patriarch, whatever superhero, um, that's the thing. So, people go, well, that character is invincible. It's like, no, but is that what you worry about? Is your major concern yourself? Then you're not a
Well,
hero
if you make
anyways.
a character whose purpose is he can beat up every other character,
Right.
big deal.
That's the juggernaut, and he's
Right.
not the hero of the
And
story.
he can't maintain a comic either. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, nobody gives crap. But like,
And I hate to say it, but how many people like Superman is kind of waning in sales and popularity.
yeah,
People say he's too powerful. And I say, well, then you missed the point of Superman. Like
right.
that Steel movie
And
missed the point of Superman.
yeah, and I'd argue that the writers are missing the point.
Read your comic before he dies, everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Buy it now while it's cheap because obviously it's going to be a
Obviously,
huge
it's going to
deal.
skyrocket.
Wait, here we go. Don't be like him with Ninja Turtles #1, right? He had
Uh,
it in his hands. He
my
could be
hundred
rich
eighty
right
thousand
now,
dollar mistake. Yeah.
but no.
For those of you who know what he's talking about, Larry, who owned the comic book store, hey, look at this Teenage Mutant Ninja. It's interesting. It's an indie comic. And I'm like, they're making fun of superheroes. And I put it down in disgust. And I only read a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic a couple of weeks ago because Tonicmole. I had to buy a 5th printing because I'll never forgive myself for not buying a first printing, but I have to take a second mortgage on the house to buy that. So yes, don't make my mistake. Get Saving the World now while Tonicmole's still alive.
I got my. There's a guy from Ninja who drew the Ninja Turtle comic who works with me on mine. My buddy Jimmy Law.
Yep.
But
I have to say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 was excellent.
Yeah,
it was so much better than I thought.
That series is wild. Especially, there's some hindsight. Like knowing what these guys were doing at the same time and what it was going to become, and like them killing Shredder. Spoiler in the first issue, right? And you go, wait, I thought that was the Magneto, the Joker. It's like, yeah, not really. They killed him in the first issue, but
right.
the cartoon was made like right after issue number 3, and so their source material was that, and they're like, well, the biggest villain they talk about is that Shredder guy and the guy with the rat robots, the Mousers, and that's all they knew. And there was a big debate about April O'Neil. Well, different artists drew her differently and completely saw her differently. But in the cartoon, you go, why is she a journalist in a onesie jumpsuit, right? Well, at the time they were developing the cartoon, the only thing she had ever worn in the comic to that point was because she was a scientist working for Baxter Stockman. She had a mechanic's overalls. And on the 3rd print of number 3 is the only time she was ever in color until issue 15 or something. So all they knew was that she was in a jumpsuit and she had red hair, right? Now, Kevin Eastman says no, it's different. Well, it don't matter, Kevin, because that
Yeah.
one guy who did a variant cover, Corbin, who does he's an amazing artist. He did a variant cover for them for the reprint, and he chose what April O'Neil would be for the foreseeable future. But I have no idea why.
Sometimes the the spin-offs or the TV shows define it like this is similar but different. Like Stranger Things now. That monster is the Demogorgon, and I'm like, no,
Right.
that's not the Demogorgon has 2 baboon heads and a tentacles for arms, and it's the most powerful thing in the monster. And my wife goes, nope, that's the Demogorgon now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a Mind Flayer. Mind Flayer is my favorite D&D monster. That's not a Mind Flayer. That's the Mind Flayer now. More people know that as the Mind Flayer than you nerds know.
Yeah. Well, see, like, I had designed Kira as her costume was black and white, but I draw in black and white. But her mask was black, her cape was black, but her costume was white. Well, Illustrator Monk did my cover for #1, and he had these yellow accents.
Yes.
And then whenever another artist would come and go, oh, do you have reference for this character? I'd go, well, yeah, here's the only color reference. It's Illustrator Monk. And all of a sudden she had Miss Sashi did the second cover, and she did yellow superhero gloves and stuff, and this accent. Oh, she had green eyes. I saw her having brown eyes, but Monk gave her green eyes, so now she had green eyes. And so I didn't do the color, my cover artist did, so they defined a lot of those elements. So now, Kira's colors are black, white with yellow accents, but that was Monk did the color accents and stuff. So
I couldn't picture her in black and white costume now.
It's all I could because I don't see in color, really. I mean, I'm not color. Some people go, are you colorblind? I go, no, I'm not medically colorblind. It's that my art, I don't see it in color. My art inside my head, behind my eyes, everything is just shades of gray or something. But and ironically, I do like working in color more and more because I've been coloring my own. Like I draw and color the standard covers myself, and I've actually learned to love it because there's all types of little details I can do. But anyways, that's back to the other topic we already talked about. Back to your comic. So you're kind of you're going to cover your universe with the different colors. So of course, I guess that the Tales of Heroic Tales hints at the idea that this is a broad universe. And
I'm already thinking in terms of like, you got to think in terms of success, right? Because terms of failure is just like, okay, that was it.
It's useless.
Right.
You don't have.
So I'm trying to think. Okay, so I make a lot of money and it does well, and people demand more. All positive things. If people want a patriarch comic, I'll do a patriarch comic. And what does that mean? That means I have to work with another artist because I don't think Renzo would be. I want Renzo to do 50 comics a month for me.
Right.
Because when I look at Renzo's artwork, it is superhero comic book artwork. It's George Bird and John Byrne, George Perez rather, and John Byrne just mushed together. It's
right.
So yeah, I would do it. But Heroic Tales is about my world, so I have a bunch of things and themes and exploration. Like issue #2 is it's the debut of Mary Sue, but it's also where the superpowers come from. So I'm exploring where superpowers come from in that issue and through the origin of another character. So And even though I said who wants to hear an origin story of a character they don't know about, this is the origin of Mary Sue, and then issue 3 is going to be an exploration about what if superheroes are anti-heroes, and so that's going to be my response to that. A Punisher kind of character in a blue sky world kind of doesn't fit, so
And it's funny, there was what you were saying before, the there's so many #1s that I've picked up of a comic or backed or something like that, to where it's setting up it's like this big deal. And I'm like, yeah, that was more for the reader or for the writer than for me. Like they're trying to pull emotional strings that they haven't threaded yet, right? And so, yeah, my favorite comics, mainstream or not, is always like this subtle opening. Like they got to make me care first before they try to make me um, go directly into Darkseid or something.
Yeah. Uh, uh, like I said, the first issue is this. The Death Star doesn't blow up the Earth. Thanos doesn't land. It starts out with a bank robbery, which was kind of like if we watched. I'm sure you know who your boy Zach Diversity in Comics is. That was like one of his jokes. Why? Whatever happened to a simple bank robbery anymore? So I was like,
Right.
I'm going to start with a simple bank robbery.
And they're often the funnest things to write because, well, for me, but because I'm a bit like I enjoy writing dialogue more, relationships, dynamics, and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, all my comics up to now, Lily and Wepawet is the hyper complex stuff. But when it's when I'm doing my superheroes, I love just a dumb like.
I would love to see Nora and Kara stop a bank robbery. They would mess up. So, the hijinks would ensue. Somebody would drop a gun. Bullets would go up. And then one, I could just imagine like one of a little kid has to go to the bathroom. And there would just be all these problems going on. It just wouldn't be a simple bank robbery
I had written.
You do wonderful, fun complications.
I'd written dozens of stories that I ended up not doing. But I had one that was early on when I was thinking about what the comic would be. And it was a bank robbery. And it was part of the idea that you don't get paid for being a superhero, but it could be very costly in ways. One thing, just your time. And I was like, if I was a superhero and I stopped a bank robbery, why would you? I mean, there's this whole thing about morality in comics, where Batman doesn't kill and you have to be so good. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, okay, you stop a robbery, a bank robbery. Is it that wrong to just take $300 or $400 out of this bag full of 200,000? So a lot of the original idea was Kira and Nora would stop bank robberies, but they would always take a little off the top before they return the money. And I liked that morally gray idea that in the real world, that wouldn't be insane. Like, it's not.
Well, that's what the Punisher does, right?
Right. And he takes it a bit further, but the idea of these little misdemeanors, right? You retrieved hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. Taking 200 or 300, that's morally gray at best, but it's fine. But in a superhero comic, that would be seen as that person's a villain, right?
The Patriarch wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Right. Oh,
but the Patriarch, I will explore this later on. He's a full-time superhero. He doesn't have a secret identity. Everybody knows who he is, which is one of the reasons why his family's in hiding. He uses his powers to pay for. He's got superpowers. Well, he can mine for gold.
Right.
He has these heightened senses, so he has found like Spanish galleons and recovered bullion. So his family wants for nothing.
Right.
And so he doesn't need to be a reporter. He doesn't need to, be a construction worker, and pretend to be somebody else. He wishes he could, because again, I'll probably explore that issue 4 of why the family is basically in the government superhero witness protection program.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I could see that Kiara and Nora, the two of the main characters in Saving the World, returning all the money, and then they turn around and one of them just has a couple of stuffed in their shirts. What are you doing?
Right.
Oh, well,
a girl's got to eat, don't she?
And then like she knows it's wrong, but convincing herself, and the other one knows it's wrong, but not trying her best to convince her that it's wrong.
Right. And I, of course, ironically, I ended up I have a very skewed sense of morality or comic book ratings because someone is like, Why do you show like some of my issues will have nudity or something, but I censor the F word?" And I was like, "I don't know. It just
It's gut.
that's me, right? Something says the F word is too far, but everything else is okay." That's just my personal.
Heroinberg, for those of you who don't know, has a web show where people in costumes do scripted superhero antics, mostly featuring women out of Pittsburgh. That's why it's Heroinberg. And he's one of the first people to ever come on my channel. So I will always remember that and always be loyal to that. He also has a comic that I'm eagerly awaiting. But he says you can get paid for being a superhero. Isn't that true of the Seven? In our universe, you have a superhero and on the payroll of a TV station. She's still very moral and just dedicated to justice. That's something I would like to address. There's nothing innately wrong with being a paid superhero, like a NASCAR guy. He's got a cape with AT&T or Twitter bird on it.
Right.
I have a character called the Peacekeeper who works for the UN. The UN pays all of his bills, and he's globally active. He's like a Superman, and he wears the blue, and he has the UN symbol on his chest. They pay his bills. They give him medical insurance, stuff like that. And every time the superheroes get beat up, who fixes their teeth? Who puts in the stitches? So that's something I will be addressing. I think it's realistic, and there will be superheroes sooner or later, God willing, my comic goes far enough, that take it too far, and they expect to get paid or they don't act. Right. Then they're not superheroes anymore.
Yeah, and that's something. And
in the world, I'm sorry. In a world like yours, John, I'm sure the government would want financial. Hold that. Yeah, I can't give away everything. People also been accusing me of telling too much. Once I get talking about it, I'm super excited. I just want to tell everything. So yes, there. Again, I almost just gave away too much. Yes, comics reader. Yes, I will just leave it at yes.
Yeah, and there, back before I did, it was Kira Nora. It was she originally Kira. It's not even hardly Kira at all. It's vaguely the seeds of it. It was a protest girl, and it was just a joke that a superhero girl that protested evil instead of like fighting it. So there's this evil.
The villains are setting the building on fire, and she goes outside and glues herself to the street.
Right. And so this evil bad guy has bought missiles from the president or something like that, and they're in this warehouse, and this guy runs in and goes, "Protest girl's outside," and she's protesting, and the bad guy's like, "Dang, protest girl," and she's just outside with a picket sign.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a hilarious idea that, people protest and they go, "This will change something." It's like, it's the easiest thing. You just ignore protesters, right? It's like evil bad guys are going to slaughter people. So it humored me. And
it is kind of funny. I could see that being like again, an 80s comic. You got that aesthetic going.
And then you fast forward and, Kira Nora, it's a whole different thing. But some of the ideas, like, because I thought about in the real world, there is that even within industries, entertainment industries, you have the mainstream people who toe the line. They work for a corporation, and that's different than like an indie people. But I thought that about that as superheroes, where you have these, like Kira Nora are the indie superheroes. They only answer to themselves. They're not conflicted, because even if you have the highest morality, when you depend on the money of others, you become begotten to them. You're compromised. And
it's funny that you said that, because I'm sure you remember, Luke Cage, Power Man.
Right.
The comic was originally Heroes for Hire, and even as a kid, I had a bad taste in my mouth about that comic. I'm just like, then you're not you getting paid Heroes for Hire. I thought the concept was flawed in the context of Marvel Comics. Here you got the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. The Avengers don't have to worry about money because it's Tony Stark's. The Fantastic Four doesn't have to worry about money because they're making money off of Reed Richards' inventions. And Luke has to eat.
Right.
So I always, but like, so what? He's going to ignore mugging, and then they brought it back a few times, and then DC made a comic called Power Company, which was a heroes for hire
Right.
and they immediately got rid of the we're getting paid to be a superhero. It just became a title of a super, because I don't think that works. And then they did a dial, I forget what it was, but they did a low powered DC comic where you called up and there's a fire. Okay, we got a guy who's immune to fire. We'll send him right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I liked it because it was small scale. Like they weren't fighting alien invasions. Like, oh, you got a dog in a tree. We got a stretchy guy who could,
Right.
But it didn't let. I think the problem is, let's be realistic. A lot of comic book writers are more left, and the more left, stereotypically not business minded.
Right.
Non-business people writing superheroes as a business.
Right. And there's sadly, like when you encounter something like that, that's where good writing happens. How do you in my comic, it's On Call Heroes is the superheroes. They answer the phone and go do the thing. They don't get paid. They just want to be superheroes. But Kira's a nerd. She's in, like, that's her hobby, is being a superhero.
Yeah.
But most people saw the posters and thought they were children's party entertainers.
Oh,
see, so that's why
the kids' party, in superhero outfits.
That the only person who's ever called them for superhero services, Hobo Girl. She was the only one that got what this actually was. But she's
Hobo Girl, who may or may not actually have powers.
Might not, because
she talks about a lot of powers and then decides, I'm just going to punch this guy.
Punch him or bite their ear off. And so she's the only one that's called them. And they, in issue number 3, they put up the posters. And yeah, they get a phone call and it's a lady. I need you here now. It's an emergency. And it's because the clown canceled at the party. And so that's how Kira and Nora get paid for being superheroes, is entertaining at children's parties. But that's just people don't realize.
That's the plot for issue number 1?
Huh?
That's the plot for issue number 1 of On Call Heroes?
Well, yeah, kind of. But it was the plot of number 3. So it's kind of been the plot. Ongoing plot. I did it in number 3 and don't.
That's right. Yes, you did.
And
yes.
I don't mention it a lot, but yeah, On Call Heroes, its main purpose was to establish that idea a little more than I do in the main series. And so every issue of On Call Heroes starts with them getting a phone call, kind of. So yeah, issue number 1 is Kira answering the phone, On Call Heroes, and it's another lady saying, oh, my son's birthday party's on Saturday. Would you be able to do it? And she goes, well, that's not really what we do. She goes, you're dressed as superheroes on the poster. What is it? Do you do birthday parties or not? She goes, well, yeah. She goes, yeah, we do. But, and she goes, so are you going to do it? She goes, and Alice goes,
pay $200,
Right. And she goes, okay, we'll do it. And then it's Alice who says, hey, I have a real superhero mission for you. And it carries off. So it's not always, the phone call isn't always them actually getting a job. But
it's 2 good looking girls on the poster of super. They're going to get hired for a bachelor party
at some point. and so yeah, most of the purpose was On Call Heroes was that I was like, I don't really get to the whole point that they are called the On Call Heroes. And yeah, I haven't I'm just now, built the team. So they haven't had a chance to be the On Call Heroes. In number 11 that I'm funding right now, they're the On Call Heroes. And then number 1 of On Call Heroes, it will actually start funding pretty soon. The art's all done, and I'm going to start funding it right as number 11 is wrapping up. And it's a controversial idea, but I have found that once I lose people's attention after funding, it's really hard to get it back. So my goal is to get people to leap right over to number 1 that have backed number 11.
I think what you're saying is very valid, and I worry about that too. So, like I said, issue number 1 of Heroic Tales is about 85% done.
Right.
The only thing I just Renzo is going to finish up the last 3 pages, and then I have to go over the dialogue, make sure it fits because he changed around a couple of panels. That's just normal comic book stuff.
Right.
And get it lettered. I already did the rewrite for issue number 2. And there's a couple of things that I don't like that I'm going to fit, but as soon as we're done, I'm giving Renzo script for number 2.
Right.
So by the time, because I want to do 2 months on Fund My Comic, 2 months on Kickstarter, 2 months on Indiegogo, and I have a variant cover for each of the platforms.
Right. Right.
I have 4 covers. Patrick Broderick is doing the one that you've all seen. I didn't show the other 2 covers yet, but for Kickstarter, it's Michael T. Gilbert. I love that cover. I love Michael T. Gilbert, who did Mr. Monster. And then for Indiegogo, it's going to be Mike Gustovich, who created the Justice Machine. And he's also doing some artwork for Renzo's Crom the Destroyer. Great. And I wanted 3 classic superhero comic book artists, to do this. So anyway, by the time that last one comes out, that last campaign, I should be doing number 2.
Right.
That's the goal. Like you said, you're absolutely right. So in reality, if this is talking about how much the sausage is made, right. I paid for issue number 1. I mean, I have a full-time job. I don't have any children. So so in reality, this campaign is funding issue number 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I want the model to be. So so even God willing, whatever, that campaign will come out, that comic will come out, so is it a good business? I never claimed to be a good businessman. I just claimed to likes comic books.
Well, and I think, as rapid as possible.
Right. I agree.
But there's lots of things that it's what, building your campaign and everything is based on what you can do, that is. So like for me, well, and a lot of people go, everybody should have their comic done before they fund like Tonicmole. I haven't had my comic done when I started funding since number 2, I think. And I never.
It's 90% you.
Right. It's just me.
And this is your full-time job doing your comics.
Right.
A lot of people don't. They whatever they got whatever jobs during the day.
Right.
They're doing, it's and my job gives me the luxury of making this comic. What I mean? If I wouldn't have been able to quit my job 6 months ago and just make this comic and still pay.
Oh yeah, and see, and I think that is like my first 4 issues. It was just I worked as a tire shop, and that tire shop, I didn't make a lot of money. I probably made no money profit wise on those first issues. I think my first issue was $2,500 at 130 backers or something, and I just built up over time. And and you
do is build a loyal fan base.
Right.
And I understand if people are hesitant, like I don't know who this guy is. He never made a comic before. That's valid. I can't argue with that. To my response is, you've seen the artwork; it's 85% done, and it's only $10, which
right.
I'm really confident that people are going to look at it, even if they don't know me. Because let's be realistic, half the people are buying it for the art,
right?
A bunch of people are buying it for the coloring, and then some people just like me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I'm nobody. I'm the rookie here, so. I got to build trust. How am I building trust? I'm giving you a great comic for the lowest price I could do without my wife packing the bags and
right.
And selling Fantastic Four #1.
I will build you up on something.
Okay.
You say you're a rookie. You have some of the most buck-ass crazy stories about the comic book industry I've ever heard. You had Jimmy Palmiotti on your show, and you interviewed him, and you had the most buck-ass crazy stories about the comic book industry on that stream. And so, and that was what has been the most entertaining thing about your streams is that, you know, lots of people have guests on. I would argue nobody's had the level of guests you've had, but even if they did, I watch the streams because I'm like, what crazy ass thing is John gonna bring up? Oh, so say you have some big comic book creator on, and he goes, well, back when I worked for Marvel in the 80s, and you go, oh, funny story. I once did a root canal on Stan Lee in an alley behind a bar. Yeah, it was a weird deal. Anyways,
something about Jimmy Palmiotti. He's such a regular guy.
Yeah.
That I like. If we both just popped open a beer and started drinking, it would have felt like being at a bar. He was such a great guy. Then I did a second stream with him and Amanda. Oh my god, they're like the coolest couple in comics.
Yeah, easy.
To the point where they almost shouldn't be in comics because everybody in comics is kind of crazy, and he just seems like a regular guy. You know, he could hang out with my construction worker buddies. He could hang out with like my nerd friends. You know, like he really is a cool guy. And you recommended that I go after him, so that's all your fault.
And the career that him and Amanda have had is insane.
Yes.
For when I was doing number one, Jimmy was already like him and Terry Moore were like, that's why my comic did even as good as it did 130, which isn't groundbreaking, but it wouldn't have had 30 backers if it wasn't for both Jimmy Palmiotti helping me out and Terry Moore.
He's another one you recommended.
Yeah.
He's not going to want to talk to me.
Those guys are wild.
He came back like twice, and
yeah,
we talked for hours.
And they're at the top of, like, in my opinion, top of the industry. For one thing, Terry Moore, he is the greatest indie creator that's ever existed. He started in 1993. He survived the implosion of 96. He survived the indie drought of throughout the 2000s where everybody went belly up. You have Chaos Comics tumble and he had to sell off all this stuff while Terry Moore and Abstract Studios kept going. That dude's never missed a beat. And
he's at the top. His art is just as good, if not better, now than it's ever been.
Yeah, he's at
Jimmy
the top.
Palmiotti just put out a comic on Kickstarter called The Hunters. It's about a married couple of bounty hunters in the West. It was freaking excellent.
It was amazing. And he just did another that was like a Jungle Girl. Sadly, I forgot what the title is.
It's active right now. Of course,
yeah. And I backed it.
When I say I'm a fanboy means I just get it. And it's funny because I saw Jimmy Palmiotti has a new Kickstarter. I just backed it. I don't know what it's about.
Yeah,
because we all do it. We all give away too much information. So I just back. Like when you make a comic, I'm backing. Red Sirens. I don't want to know what it's about. I just backed it.
Right, and I think a good writer and artist, it is that originality that makes it where Jimmy don't have to tell me what it's about. He's Jimmy Palmiotti. Yeah. You know what you're getting. I
fell in love with his stuff back with Jonah Hex. I was a fan of Western comics, and I got his Jonah Hex. Oh man,
his Western.
It was a sad day when that comic finished.
Yeah, and that's what the Hunters or something, that his new Western he just did. I'm not a Western fan at all, but much like I'm not a big fan of Western movies, but freaking Tombstone is a damn masterpiece, right? That kind of how I feel with Jimmy Palmiotti with Western stuff.
Yeah, I love when he does Westerns.
Right, he's just freaking good, and it makes you enjoy a Western whether you like it or not. And but anyways, those guys, that really inspired me to kind of like with Brian Ball going, I'm going to crowdfunding, right? Well, when I was trying to crowdfund Jimmy Palmiotti and Terry Moore, they really helped me out. And then I had tons of guys that were into crowdfunding also, Doug Garrett and all these guys. all jumped in and helped me, or I'd have never even got off the ground. Right. And
You know,
then,
I have not encountered anybody that told me to F off. You know,
right,
when I started doing this, I didn't even know what I didn't know. Like,
right, right, right.
There was whole steps that I didn't even know that I had to do. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And I started to get discouraged. And I talked to people, from you to everybody else. They've been going out of the way to help. You know, my philosophy is just ask. You know,
Yeah.
bury your ego and ask. And most people have been like, oh yeah, you know,
Yeah. And
swallow your ego and ask, you know, and be nice and be nice.
yeah.
You know, we don't have to fight. We don't have to be jealous. This guy's making $10,000 more in his comic book than me. That's not taking money out of my pocket. There's enough money going on. Oh, Jimmy Pod, it ended. Oh, okay. I'd love to see Jim Ballard. I would love to.
Hey,
You know?
but you got to let me co-host that one, man. That's a guy. His art in the 90s and stuff, and still
Everybody loved his art. Yeah,
and he just crowdfunds now. He does his own comics and stuff. He has his own series that he does, and he's doing really well.
Guys who crowdfund are more willing to do little shows like mine.
Yeah, and but his run on Catwoman
was classic.
Yeah, it was like life-changing to me. Because I was in that mid-teen still, and that comic come out, and I have that Catwoman #1 that's signed by, well, him, but the entire art team, the writer, the inker, the artist, the whole bit.
Tonic, I have to get going because I have a talk at 10 o'clock with my buddy Mike, and my wife gave me dinner right before. But I just want to say this: next time we talk, remind me to tell you the Jim Ballard Catwoman story.
Oh, son of a Jesus Christ, John!
It has nothing to do with Jim Ballard. It just has to do. It has to do with the comic. It's a funny story.
We got to do a whole show just about his Catwoman run. We'll do that another time.
Yes. Oh, Tarot Witch. Okay. Tarot Witch, Black Rose. Oh, okay. Okay, I gotta look that up. I get so embarrassed when I find out a comic that I should know about that I don't. But
there's so many.
This between doing my own comic, talking to my team, trying to read comics, and then working a full-time job, and then paying attention to my wife so she doesn't leave me and take half my comic.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time to look at all the stuff that I should look at. Oh, and Marcus, yes, Billy Tucci's a mastercraft. You know what's funny? I've been intimidated to ask Billy Tucci. I don't know why. Like Graham Nolan, I just finally asked him like 2 weeks ago, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it tomorrow." And he was the nicest guy. It was, I don't know, like Jim Shooter. I waited months before I contacted him because something just intimidated by like
that was the greatest interview of all time.
That was amazing. And he talked for hours. I was
starstruck and I was watching. I was.
Yeah, I knew. We talked like 20 minutes before we went live. I had to get all that stumbling nerd stuff out of the way so I could be. Same with Chuck Dixon. I'm like, I'm talking to Chuck. Who am I? I'm talking to Chuck Dixon. Oh, it's very mature. Black Tarot Witch. Yeah, Billy's a great. You know what, Marcus? It's my own insecurities or whatever. Like he is. He's like the friendliest guy. He only lives like a quarter of a mile away from me too. You know.
Yeah, and we follow, like Billy too. We follow each other, so
yeah, he's responded to things that I've posted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I will reach out. I don't know why I'm being silly, but I do have to go because my buddy Mike is on at 10 o'clock. I gotta eat dinner. I gotta wolf this down, and you know, it's fun to be on Tonic's Longbox as your guest, and. Again, Tonicmole has been one of the first people to ever come on my channel. Great guy. I love his comic. You should, in a healthy industry, you should be right there on the comic racks with all the great, you know, right? Strangers in Paradise or Echo or whatever the latest Terry Moore comic. Right next to it should be Saving the World. A title I cannot believe nobody else used. How, you know, what a great title.
How is that? Isn't that crazy? I looked a lot. I was like, there's no way. But
I Google a lot of, I'm like, oh man, this name that I want to use is taken, you know.
I think Saving the World was so obvious that everybody just
everybody just assumed that it's like the hot girl who doesn't go to the prom because everybody just assumes she had a date.
That's exactly it. That's it. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up for you. Hold on.
Okay.
I got it. Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in to John's Tonics Longbox with John
Longmole.
Bowie. John Bowie. And we want you to like this video and hit that subscribe button. And we'll see you all. We'll see you guys. He'll see you guys in a few hours, but it'll be days before I see you guys. You'll see me. So, anyways, thank you all for showing up.
Thank you.
And we'll see
Thank
you
you
later.
everybody for watching. This is a blast. I love talking with Tonicmole. Is one of my favorite people. And thank you guys for watching. And I'm excited. April 24th on Michael Bancroft. He's gonna launch. He's gonna host my launch party. It'll be at 9 p.m. April 26th. And I'm excited. And oh my God, am I nervous at the same time. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.
See ya.